I'm Tabarak. I am based in New York City. I did my bachelor's from IBA Karachi 2018 और उसके बाद 2022 में I came to Northeastern University Boston. उससे पहले मैं कर रहा था एक hedge fund में Vitality Capital as an equity research analyst or 2022 में I wanted to go for my master's degree. That's when I came across Saad के Saad के उस time पे I think 21 में at end of 21 22 I think that's when you gave your exam and you blew up. And फिर on your I think on some Facebook groups I saw you. और फिर मैंने I didn't really reach out to you उस time पे, but
Yeah,
all
yeah.
I was doing was I was मैंने तुम्हारे YouTube पे कुछ दो चार वीडियोस देखी थी और मैं एक देसी आदमी हूँ, so मेरी English वो my verbal was very weak and really good.
That's the case with everyone. मतलब हम सारे इस तरह के हैं. And the
Yeah,
verbal is quite crazy to be honest. मतलब ये नहीं कि हमारी अंग्रेजी बुरी. It's just that the verbal is actually tough.
yeah. But anyhow, so I was really struggling with verbal, and that's when I came across Big Book, and I got to know of it from you. उसके बाद फिर anyhow, back to my intro. I did my master's from Northeastern University, and now I work in New York City as a turnaround and restructuring consultant. अगर किसको नहीं पता तो turnaround and restructuring is जब companies bankrupt होती हैं, they have to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And usme my company, Alex Partners, we help them through their bankruptcy process. And my role is to identify कि अगले 12 महीने में कौन सी companies bankrupt होंगी so that we can reach out and start pitching our work to them. So that's what I do professionally. My claim to fame is the cool things that I do. And most notably, which I really appreciate talking about, is my run across Pakistan, जो कि अभी दिसंबर में खत्म हुई थी. So that was a little bit about me. Going back to Saad, Saad is my friend from Lums, और Saad GRE का चीता है. He's a king. So Saad, why don't you talk, briefly about yourself? के how did you get into GRE? अपनी career journey क्या थी? And then we can dive into the questions.
Yeah, so मैं honestly बताऊं मेरा कोई इरादा नहीं था GRE ना पढ़ाने का ना कुछ. So even if you see this Instagram page, मतलब लोग Instagram पे पढ़ते तो नहीं हैं, but it just blew off. So basically what happened was that I was working at the British Council at that time, and before that I did take the GRE and I scored a 296, which was a pretty bad score. But लोगों का ये आता है, बस कोई बताता नहीं है जो बात है. तो
Okay.
जनरली ना लोगों के 290s में पहली अटेम्प्ट पे आते हैं. So after that it was 158 out of 170 quant and 138 out of 170. So उसके बाद I lost hope, but at the same time I had a couple of friends, not a couple, I think 5-6 friends who I guided कि यार मैंने ऐसे पढ़ा था, मेरा बुरा स्कोर आया था, लेकिन मैंने ये रिसोर्सेज यूज की थी और अब मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि मैंने जितनी रिसर्च की, आई डिडंट टेक द एग्जाम अगेन तब तक, तो ये कर लो. तो उनका जो कैपेसिटी थी ना, जो पोटेंशियल मुझे लगता था, उससे उनका 5-7 मार्क्स ज्यादा आते थे. तो दे वर लाइक के we've got a 315 or like a 318 or like 310. तो मुझे थोड़ा अंदाजा था because they were my childhood friends. So that is how I realized कि maybe I started using all the wrong resources और मैं वापस करता हूँ. And because I was at British Council, तो उनका बहुत ज्यादा काम होता है. So it was like 9 a.m. से at least 7 p.m. तक, but then COVID hit और from home हो गया, and that is when I started studying for it again. And that is when I took the exam and I scored a 3. So a lot of people ask me, were you expecting a 339? मैं ऐसे ही बोलूं, it was a lucky day for sure. I was expecting a 330 plus for sure, but not 339. And secondly, मुझे ये समझ आ गई इस एग्जाम के बारे में कि ये जो रिसोर्सेज आउट देयर है ना, जैसे लोग बहुत ज्यादा प्रिंसटन या कैप्टन वगैरह वो करते हैं, ये सिर्फ मार्केटिंग गिमिक्स हैं, इनकी कोई इतनी गेम नहीं है. एंड द रियल जीआरई दैट यू टेक, like the actual exam, is pretty different from what the public resources are out there. That's what I really hate about this exam, and I always say, okay, this is quite unfair for students as well. So that's how the journey started. a lot of people started following me because I spoke the truth that I had a 296, and like everyone was like, "ये हमारी तरह का ही है." मैं like, let's just follow him. So वो relatability, क्योंकि तबारी मेरे से ना बहुत पहले 20 दिन पहले एक और boy is Zohan Tariq from Nas. He scored a 340 out of 340. But like I think most people couldn't relate with their journey, although बहुत bright है, बहुत genius है, बहुत fit बंदा है, because शायद वो यही कहते हैं कि ये बहुत बड़ा जीनियस है इसलिए आ गया इसको। मुझे लगता है मेरे साथ इसलिए रिलेटेबिलिटी, बिकॉज मैं स्ट्रगल करके यहाँ तक पहुंचा।
Nice, nice, bro. I appreciate that. सब नालायक नहीं है, by the way. इधर सब बहुत
And
लायक है.
also, I think because I put this link on my story, so a lot of foreigners have joined, like these people, and they're saying to speak in English because they can't understand our language. So I knew this is
Try.
all.
We'll try to be bilingual. Uh,
Yeah,
okay.
I want them to be a part of it as well.
So, so the first question is के एग्जाम डे पे imagine I'm someone who works in finance, 2-3 साल से काम कर रहा हूँ. I graduated, couple of years ago, and I want to get back into GRE. Where do I start? Like, I have a decent enough quant का background. मुझे math आती है, मुझे English भी आती है, but like I have never sat for GRE. Where do I start?
So, the first question I would ask you is that how many hours can you give per day? That would be my first question for me, because otherwise it would just be generic guidance. But like generally, if you can take out a couple of hours every day and like 4 hours or 3 hours on the weekend, I would say that the first thing you should do is go through the Magoosh videos. For quant only, and you can get them free also if you want, like if you google them or join in my podcast channel, you can easily get them, and simultaneously learn words from the Magoosh Common and Basic app, or some people use Dregmat for vocab, which is also pretty decent. So both of these should be done simultaneously, the Magoosh quant videos and the vocab. And then what people, I think the biggest mistake that people make is that they start practicing questions right after finishing the videos and right after doing the vocab. That's not the right way to do it. What you have to do is that you have to take the ETS diagnostic power prep 1 mock and see where you lie. If you have a 290 or less than a 300 in that power prep 1, I would say that your basics are not good enough. Either you're lacking in the vocab part, like you think you know the vocab but you don't, or secondly, your math foundations are not very good. So I would then advise you to go for a lengthier route, which would be to cover the topics that you think in quant. For example, if you don't know statistics, I would then suggest to go through the Manhattan strategy guides, because they're painfully long. So that's not the first hunch. Like you would go through Manhattan strategy guides only if you score less than 300. And in quant, I would say if you're scoring less than 155. So that's how I would approach it. And then a lot of people ask me that, Saad, where do we practice from? I usually tell my students that the closest third party resource for quant is Magoosh. It is pretty decent still. And for verbal, it is only the official guides, which is the ETS official guides, the purple ones, and the big book for reading copy.
Okay, nice. And then I'll start taking questions from the chat as soon as I can. So
Yeah, because a
I'm
lot
doing
of
that
people
right now.
know that.
So we have a question in the chat. What do you suggest to someone who has neither good verbal nor quant skill, and they come from a medical background? That is Sanju Gautam.
I think I know her. She is probably from Nepal. I think you can't take this test in like a month or so. First of all, you would, so neither good verbal nor quant skill means that you're somewhere hovering around the 280 to 290 mark, and this will, people who tell you that you'll be able to score a 320 in like a month, that is a lie. You would have to go through and brute force a lot of Magoosh videos and simultaneously do a lot of time practice, and then see if your diagnostic mock after like 2 months, I would say you should take the mock, because it will take you a long time finishing the Magoosh videos. Another question, Tawarik, that people ask me is that how much time does it take to cover these Magoosh videos? So everyone has a different time span, like, and everyone's grasping power is different, but generally you can finish it in 3 weeks if like you're very, very, very motivated. So what would you suggest to someone? I would say that you need, first of all, I think if you think that you're going to ace the GRE in like a month or so, take that out of your mind. You should at least spend around 3 to 4 months and brute force a lot of Magoosh questions and Magoosh videos. And for vocab, do the Magoosh common and basic. And then a lot of people say that why don't you suggest your vocab in your videos and stuff? I don't suggest my vocabulary in the beginning because it might intimidate you. Once you finish Magoosh common and basic words, then you can shift to my vocab.
Nice. And किस में how as a student how do I know where to spend more time? मुझे quant में ज़्यादा time लगाना चाहिए या verbal में ज़्यादा लगाना चाहिए?
So
How
that's
do
a
I
good question. Pehli baat, so firstly, I would say that you should know what you're applying for. So if you're applying for business analytics or data analytics or computer science or economics, these majors are very, very quant intensive. So generally, admission committees are not interested in your verbal score, even if it's somewhere around a 150, that's pretty good. But your quant cannot be less than 165, or like for econ or I would say for econ, economics, and data science and computer science and machine learning, a one anything less than a 167, I don't think you can get easy funding.
Yeah,
So
but I think it's easy. It's still easy to get in. It's
yeah,
still easy.
yeah, you can definitely get in. So GRE will definitely get you in. That, but as far as, and also a lot of people think that if they score like a 335, 340, they'll get like a full ride. It's not the case. That's it's not very easy because a lot. So what people fail to understand is that you're competing with the entire world, and generally, I've come across a lot of competitive profiles, especially from India. Indians are super competitive, and they have everything ticked. Yes, of course, your chances increase, but like scoring a 330 and asking for a guaranteed full ride, that is not, that is, I think, unrealistic.
Or before we talk more about GRE और GMAT में क्या फर्क है? Or like who should go for GRE, who should do a GMAT?
So GMAT is an exam that is question adapt. A lot of people don't know this. I've taken the GMAT as well. I scored a 740 in it.
Right.
But what I found in the GMAT was that GMAT is question adaptive, so every question becomes tougher and tougher, and its quant is I would say at least 20 to 30% tougher than the GRE, especially because of the data sufficiency portion. There's a portion called data sufficiency, and GMAT. A lot of people say that if you're applying for the MBA or business schools, you should take the GMAT. Yes, this was preferred till 2022, end of 2022, but now admission committees have an entire conversion chart, and I would say that the GRE is easier, much easier, unless and until you are amazing at quant, and people say that the verbal part is easier of the GMAT. It's not easier, it's different because there's a lot of critical reasoning involved in it. So if you so if I were you, I would take both the mocks and see the conversion table where I lie. Whatever seems easier to me, I would take it. But generally, it's GRE for most of the people because the quant is easier and most people want to score higher in quant. That is generally the case. And secondly, because GRE is acceptable other than business schools as well. So
Right.
that's how I
And
would.
who should obsess about having a great GRE score? Like, for example, मेरा 310 है. Like, I scored 310 in my GRE, and I want to go for a business analytics degree from a tier two school. Should I obsess about getting a 335 in my GRE score? Yeah, किसको who really wants that score? Uh,
So I
क्योंकि
think
yeah, I'm sorry, because I know some friends who got into good schools like Purdue,
my
or
brother's from Purdue.
yeah,
My brother's from Purdue.
nice. So I know a bunch of kids who went to great schools like Purdue, or they had their GRE score at 307, 308,
Yeah, yeah.
and they had like a really strong GPA. और उनका कोई लंबा चौड़ा एक्सपीरियंस भी नहीं था. It was a master's degree, engineering का program था या data का program था, but they got in and they got a really good funding as well. So और I think एक दो बच्चे थे जो design के programs में भी गए हैं Purdue में, that I know. So who should really अब उनके लिए obsess करना over a 327 or a 335 is, I think, useless.
I think that's a very, very good question. I don't think anyone has asked me that. If I were you and I would be applying to a tier two school, I would never obsess about this exam. I, I mean, I would give my best, but like the work teaching this exam also takes a very, very emotional toll on you, especially for a person like me, because people expect a lot out of me. Like if they get onboarded with me, like people just think that they will automatically get their score, but that is not how it works. Secondly, if you apply to a tier two school, I think a 310, 305, 315, these are pretty decent scores and you shouldn't obsess over it. Yes, if you're applying to tier ones, just like a student of mine on the 8th of April, Ashley Betancourt, she's from the States. She got a 336, and she's applying to Stanford's MBA program. And that is the only program she's applying to. And she is very, very clear headed why she wants to apply to Stanford. And she has a crazy experience. She's like Forbes under 30. And she's like a solid built for Stanford.
That's
Just
an
that
MBA. Nice.
yeah, just that the GRE score had to be higher, like three, at least it had to be 327. So I
Okay.
think only for tier one schools and the most competitive programs for like business analytics or MBA, you should obsess over it. Otherwise, it's not worth it.
Nice. Okay. And just to tee off of you, जो मेरा अपना experience अभी तक रहा है, if you have a really good GRE score, or अगर आपका if you have a 320 plus, I think 320 plus pay, I think it starts getting in the league where you can say it's a really good score. और
Yeah.
उसमें फिर आपका 2-3 साल का 4 साल का experience है already industry में, and you want to work in finance, consulting, business वाली side पे strategy में काम करना है, tech में product management करनी है, then definitely go for an MBA.
Yeah.
You should definitely go for an MBA. Baki, don't. I did my business analytics degree. I work in finance now, but I don't recommend it. So if you have a really good GRE score, go for programs that really जिनके लिए आपको GRE चाहिए भी था और जो फिर आपको maximize भी करें. इतना अच्छा GRE लेके going for a tier 3 or a tier 2, उसमें कोई random MS की degree that might not cut it for you. If your goal is to maximize your earning potential. अगर कोई शौक है किसी जगह जाने का, पढ़ने का, that's different. But Saad, what's the biggest mistake you see कि जो आपके students कर रहे हैं या over the past couple of years जो बच्चे करते हैं?
So the biggest mistake is not doing time practice.
Time
That's the
practice.
yeah, that's the
How
biggest
do you do
mistake.
that?
I've seen everyone does that. I think 99% of the people do that because this exam does not have a lot of official marks. So it's just a couple of free marks, and then for the other three, they're paid. So people usually try to avoid it because each mark is $40, and like in Pakistan or India, wherever in Asia, people think it's pretty expensive. So then people just try to take those two free marks, and those two free marks quant level is very easy. So people think that if they're scoring a 168, I always tell them that take that with a pinch of salt. At least do a -4 from that in terms of quant, not for verbal. Verbal is correct. So that is what happens, and then in the exam, when they see the quant level, they are actually blown off. So that is one thing that I recommend students that do time practice. Even when you're practicing Magoosh, do time practice. Like I'll just give you a general rule of thumb. For every four questions, you should spend around 7 minutes because you can't like give each question some certain time limit. That's quite ridiculous. But like for a bunch of four questions, you should spend 7 minutes.
Okay, so हमेशा whenever you're timing your exam, you should think about groups of four and give them
Yeah,
7 minutes.
exactly.
Nice.
That is.
Oh
Uh,
wow, dude, I never thought like that.
yeah, I don't know the word. This exam, I've attended so many ETS meetings as well there and stuff, but generally, I just think that they've concealed a lot of information from the
Okay,
student. Like and like in the sense that when you take the real exam, you are actually blown off when it comes to quant. Not for verbal. Verbal is great. You can practice from GregMat. You can practice from the big book, the verbal official guides. But Quant, even Magoosh, I say it is. So look at my words. I say it is the closest third party resource that you can get to, but it does not depict the actual level of.
okay, nice. और इसमें I we got a question from Asfandiyar Amjad.
Yeah,
Asfandiyar
I
पूछ
think we should start taking questions.
Yeah, I'm doing that. That's all I'm doing. That's all
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
doing. So, can a GRE of above 325 compensate a below average GPA of 2.7 for Tier 1 MBA program? Bro, I
yeah,
think, yeah, I think it can if you, yeah, this is what my experience is. I graduated from IBA with a 2.61, but I had my CFA charter and I had a 325, yeah, 326 I was time with GRE. So I had a good enough GRE score to help me get into, some other good schools as well. So maybe Saad, you can talk a bit about it. कि जो जिन बच्चों का GRE का GPA कम होता है, are they able
yeah.
to compete with
I
it?
always say that this exam is a lottery ticket for people who have a lower GPA because they can still compensate for it because now you have a low GPA, you can't change that, right? So I think I should connect these people with my success stories like Leonardo from Mexico scored a 300 and I think 31. He's on my Instagram page and he went to Tuck Business School and Tabarak for MBA and he also had a 2 point, I think 2.72. And the shocking thing was that I've never seen that much funding. He got $100,000 funding, which is
Nice.
crazy in terms of because MBAs, it's very difficult to get funding.
Yeah.
So and I do have, I think, 4, 5 more people. Arsalan got it from Yale, and he got it. His GPA was 2.86. So, of- I would say that don't lose hope. If you score really well on the GRE, it will definitely compensate. But yes, your the other profile other than the GRE should also be solid. Like people expect to go for an MBA after a year's experience. That doesn't make sense. The average experience should be somewhere around 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. और इसमें अच्छा before now I want to do a little bit about each section. So I'll start with quant. Quant में किसको start करना है? For example, somebody is sitting at let's say 155 या 152 marks में. They want to get to 165. उनके पास they have around 1 month. So what are the best resources? What's the playbook? सिर्फ quant की.
So for quant, the first thing that I would do is build my foundation, and for my foundation, I would go through the Magoosh videos for
Magoo.
quant. Especially, there are 4 topics that are like are really hot in on the GRE, and those are statistics. I think people will say to write the statistics, number properties, word problems, and geometry. This also includes coordinate geometry. Uh, so these 4 topics you definitely need to. I think
कहाँ से तैयारी करें पहले तो like you start with
Push
Magoosh
videos. Yeah. Once those that foundation has been built, I would go through all of the Magoosh questions. Easy, there. So therefore, levels easy, medium, hard, and very hard. Some of the very hard are quite psycho-like, but like they're still decent for like opening your mind. But basically, you should do all of easy, medium, hard, and if you're doing very well on them, you can try a little very hard questions. That's what I would do for quants. And yeah, so I would ignore data interpretation from Magoosh and do that data interpretation. It's a section of quant from the big book, and especially from test 28 to test 20. Those are test people who know about the big book would understand what I'm saying. I would do data interpretation from there. And if you still have time, you can do only one topic, which is number properties from word problem. That's pretty insane.
from where?
The Manhattan 5 will be.
Manhattan
It's
Five Pound.
yeah,
Okay.
it's called the 5 pound book. But other than that, 5 pound is pretty shit. So don't do
Okay.
it.
Nice. ठीक है. So quant का if you can summarize again in like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
चार
So
topics हैं
Mag-
कहाँ से हैं?
yeah. So Magoosh videos. First of all, your concentration should be on these 4 topics because if you cover these, 70% of your exam is covered for sure. So do these 4 topics. Go through the Magoosh videos for all topics, of course. Um, then practice questions from Magoosh, do the power preps, and do data interpretation from the big book. And if you still have time, the number properties from the Manhattan 5 will be only the number properties. It is also known as integers. So this topic from Manhattan 5 will be. And a lot of people complain that we don't have a lot of mocks. You can see the feedback I receive under the comments. on Instagram as well. Do my mocks, but at the end, they're only Quant mocks. I've uploaded them. They're very, very similar to the real GRE. It's from feedback taken from different students as well. So definitely do that. It's free of cost. I uploaded, I think, two, three, I think three mocks.
Okay, nice. और इसमें this was for 1 month. अब for example, somebody in the chat said कि मेरा एक हफ्ते they have their exam after 1 week and they're sitting at 158 quant. So what can they do in those 7 days to maximize their chances of getting to 165?
I think take as many mocks as possible because time practice is the game only. So if you have 7 days, do my four Quant mocks, do purchase all three power prep plus uh, attempt the power prep, the two power preps. So those are three paid ones, two free ones, five, four mine, nine, and the people don't know about this, but there is an official guide of Quant and verbal both. It's on the older format, but there are two mocks in it also. Those are also free. So 11 mocks. Take those 11 mocks like crazy.
Nice. And now let's switch to verbal. So जो बंदा, for example, they have their exam in 1 month. They are sitting at, क्योंकि quant people are usually sitting at 150, 52 पहले दिन,
Yeah,
and verbal they're sitting at
yeah.
150, 145 in a good case. So if I'm sitting at 140 to 145 at verbal, I have 1 month. So what's my playbook?
So if you have 1 month and you're sitting at 140, 145, first of all, do the vocab because vocab is the basic building block that will get you through 50% of the exam. It's not magic, but if you don't know the vocab, you won't even get to 50% of the exam. Once you do the Mugush common and basic words, either do that or you can do Greg Matt's Mountains. It's the same thing. Greg Matt is pretty decent for verbal. He's a very good resource and a very genuine resource out there. After that, you can switch to my 341 list. And for reading comprehensions, I would definitely practice from the big book. Now, a lot of people say that where do I study verbal from? As in, where do I study the techniques from? Uh, if I were you, I I would study the techniques of Greg Matt's reading comprehension. He's very good. Uh,
Reading comprehension. Okay.
yes, I think he is the best reading comprehension resource in the world. I've also learned a lot from him, and a lot of people say not to mention him, but like I mean, if someone is good, he's good, and you should definitely appreciate it. I think he is the most genuine resource out there for verbal and even for quant. His so the foundation videos, I don't really like his approach because he applies on the plug it in method, which I don't really like. But so I prefer Magoosh for quant. But like for verbal, he is very good. I mean, no one can compete with Greg Matt's verbal, especially reading comprehension.
Nice. So इसमें, okay, going back 30 seconds or 20 seconds, summarize all that you said for verbal.
So what I would do is the first step is to learn Magoosh common and basic words or Greg Matt's mountain climbs. Those are also words. I think they're 32 sets. And then shift to my 341 list. I'm not saying because it's mine, but because these are words that have actually appeared on the exam and like you can get to know about it afterwards. And then start uh, understanding the reading comprehension techniques from Greg Matt. He's pretty good. And so don't practice from there, practice from the big book for reading comprehension. That will be your savior. When I scored a 138, I had only one question right out of 20. It was the older format. And then when I did all of big book, it's like a lot of reading comprehension, like 200 plus. I scored 19 out of 20. So I think it's the holy Bible for reading comprehension. So I would do the words, understand strategy, reading comprehension strategy from Greg Matt, practice big book reading comprehension, and for sentence equivalence and text completion, I would definitely do it from the GRE official guides, the purple ones. Those are pretty.
Nice. और अब ये तो, this was for someone who has a month and a bit more, but उसके अगर किसी पास एक हफ्ता है, only 1 week, and they want to improve their verbal from 150 to 160, how do they do that?
1 week.
Okay, before you answer, I can tell मैंने क्या किया था. मैंने, what I did was I went to Big Book or big book पे, I think all the exams that you had told in one of your YouTube videos, मैंने जाके वो सारे एग्जाम कितनी दफा प्रैक्टिस कर सकता था, कर लिए थे। और उससे ये
Mhm.
था कि मुझे उसकी टेक्निक समझ आ गई थी, ब्रेक डाउन लाइक प्रैक्टिस कर करके। सो आई मीन दैट्स व्हाट आई डिड। आई डोंट नो व्हाट यू वुड डू।
I think, first of all, let's be realistic. Improving from 150 to 160 in a week is tough. For verbal, quant is still easier to improve. But now, if you only have 7 to 10 days, it depends how much vocab. If you are done with Mugush common and basic words, I think generally what people do is that if they have 10 days, they don't have a lot of vocab. So I would focus more on vocab first. So because the easier low hanging fruits in the exam are sentence equivalence and text completion, that's 50% of your exam, and the other 50% is reading comprehension. So improving reading comprehension is much more difficult in 10 days as compared to improving the equivalence and completion questions. So I would do more vocab and start concentrating and practicing on equivalence and text completion from the official guides. I would do that like crazy. And simultaneously, I would learn techniques of Greg Matt's reading comprehension and implement that on the big book as much as I can do.
नाइस। और किसी को, फॉर एग्जांपल somebody is short on budget, अभी तक like we talked about getting some GRE books, फलानी बुक खरीदनी है, यहाँ से खरीदनी है, और maybe you said buy some mock tests as well, somebody is short on budget, um, what are the absolute necessary subscriptions or books they should get, और अगर नहीं मिल सकती तो free resources कहाँ से मिल सकती हैं? How do you do that?
So I think if investing in Power Prep Plus, the paid box by ETS, I think that at least investing in one of them is an absolute necessity. I would still say its quant is easier, like at least 2 marks easier. But that is one thing. Other than that, a lot of people ask me, I think someone asked in the chat as well, should I buy the Magoo subscription? You can if you want, but like you can get these questions also like here and there. I'm not endorsing because then a lot of people say that this is pirated stuff and stuff. So it
Okay.
gets very tricky. But other than that, even if you join my broadcast channel, you will get so many resources, and they're only those resources that you need. What you should absolutely spend on would be, uh, I would say, Greg Matt's subscription is only $7 a month for reading comprehension. I would only use him for reading comprehension, not for equivalence, sentence equivalence, or text completion, or for quant. Secondly, you can get the big book PDF, so that's not.
बिग बुक
Uh,
पीडीएफ फ्री में मिल जाती है ना, आई थिंक, अगर।
it's also in my broadcast. All of these, the Mugush videos are there. Everything is there. If I were you, I would definitely try to save those 120 bucks and spend that on all three Power Prep Plus because those are important and those are close to the real GI. So that I think that's that and Greg Matt subscription for
नाइस।
for verbal. That is, yes, these two are absolute necessities. I wouldn't say buying the Mugu subscription, which is I think pretty expensive, like 130, 140. It's decent, yes, because it gives you a dashboard and stuff like that, gives you extra features. But like I'm saying, for those who cannot afford, the absolute necessity should be RegMat for verbal reading comprehension and buying all three Power Prep Plus.
नाइस। और इसमें जो एडब्ल्यूए जो राइटिंग वाला सेक्शन होता
Yeah.
है, हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट इज दैट और हाउ अनइम्पोर्टेंट इज दैट? उस पे
I
कितना
think
टाइम, एग्जाम की तैयारी में उस पे कितना टाइम स्पेंड करना चाहिए?
so that I always tell my students that this is one thing that you should cover at the very end and spend all this time on your verbal and quant. Look, scoring in the essay is not that tough. It's not like a CSS essay. So a lot of people know this who are Pakistanis. It's not like a CSS essay, and you marked on three things. It's paragraphing, it's grammar, and it's spelling mistakes. So yes, for every so so typo is also considered as a spelling mistake. So you just need to be careful about these three things. I know it's easier said than done, but if you just don't you don't need to put any flashy words, anything. So if you just write a basic essay, you will get a 4 or a 4.5, which is more than enough. You out of a 6. You don't need more than that. I think anything above a 3.5 is pretty decent. And So for the essay, the max I would do is go through my 6 out of 6 essays that I've uploaded, or even GregMat is very good for essay. Do that in the last couple of days. Do not spend that time, because people do admission committees are not interested in your essay scores unless and until you're applying for a literature major. Yes, then they're interested. But other than that, anything above 3.5 out of 6, which is pretty easy to get, is what an admission committee is interested in. They would be more interested in getting a higher quant or verbal score, like a higher GRE score. And also, I tell a lot of students that if the AWA was very important, they would have put these 6 marks of the essay in the GRE 340 total score. It's separate. That means that it is not very, very important.
Nice. Yeah, I think somebody Vasu Vora, she said that she got a 5 on AWA with 1 day prep. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look, let me, I got Vasu. Yeah.
तो
I think
इसमें एक और सवाल आई थिंक कैसर इज आस्किंग कि मैंने ग्रेग आई हैव डन ग्रेग मेट कॉन्ट ट्वाइस आई हैव आल्सो कंप्लीटेड रीडिंग कॉम्प्रिहेंशन सारा कुछ कर लिया है हाउ डू आई नो दैट आई एम रेडी टू टेक द एग्जाम उसमें मेरा I can tell you about how I would think about it. Then, Saad, I think you're more experienced in that. But, bro, you just have to take the leap. I think if you should राइट मेरे ख्याल में इसमें ये है कि अगर महीना दो स्पेंड कर लिया एंड देन इंक्रीमेंटली वंस यू स्टार्ट रियलाइजिंग कि अब और फायदा नहीं हो रहा है और मैं इम्प्रूव नहीं कर रहा था आई थिंक दैट्स द राइट टाइम बट हाउ आई डू इट और हाउ आई गो अबाउट माई एग्जाम्स इज आई जस्ट सेट अ डेडलाइन यार मैंने 2 महीने बाद एग्जाम देना है फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई लिसन टू सम एक्सपर्ट्स या कोई जो लोग इसको मेंटोर कर रहे हैं और उन्होंने बताया कि 2 महीने आपको लगेंगे अगर आप इस लेवल पे हो and then you have to spend this much time every day for 2 months then I just sign up for the exam and then get going with that so how do you recommend people who are lacking confidence
I think the most realistic advice that I can give you is that whatever your target score is, for example, if your target score is 155 or like, okay, 160 in verbal, you have to take the official mock. And if your score is like a plus minus 5, then you can take that leap of faith. But if it's like 10 points away, I don't think there's any point of taking it. I would still suggest you to reschedule and study harder for it, because it will result in a heartbreak and a demotivation. I know what students go through. So generally what I guess what you mentioned is a lot of students do that as well, that they register for the test so that there's a ticking time bomb and like there's some pressure. A lot of people do this. But generally when you come closer to the exam and if your score is in the plus minus 5 range, then that's okay. I think plus minus 5 is also very high. Plus minus 3, then you should take that leap of faith. If you don't, then that means if you've done GregMat's reading comprehension, equivalence, and text completion, and you're still not doing it, then that means you are not. So you're not understanding his techniques for sure, because a lot of people improve through him. You are not understand. So I know what you're trying to do. I know what your mistake is. Your mistake is that you've thought that you learned all of vocab and now you should get all the questions correct. That's not how the GRE works. You need to understand what the sentence is saying. You need to understand if there is a shifter in the sentence, if they've said however, or if they've used a semicolon or a colon or a comma, they signify very important steps in the question. So that is important. People just think that if we learn vocab, we are done with the verbal part. So if you've done with all of GregMat's reading comprehension and you're still not improving, that means that you need to go back to the basics again, go back to the vocab again, go back to his videos also again, and then start practicing all over again.
nice और इसमें okay, somebody Zara is asking what are the chances of getting into another master's program if you already have an MS degree I think your chances are pretty good that
Yeah,
could yeah but
chances are, I would also agree with this.
yeah and how is the job market? This is by the way, this is a GRE session. Let's try to keep our questions to that. But how's the job market in the US post MBA in terms of ROI? I think it's pretty good. You might see a few headlines here and there कि no, Harvard से भी बच्चों की नौकरी नहीं लग रही, ये नहीं हो रहा. I think underlying that headline is the fact कि once you're at Harvard, once you're at Stanford, तो आपकी सेल्फ सिलेक्शन भी करते हो आप कि यार मुझे $2 लाख से नीचे वाली जॉब करनी नहीं है मुझे इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकिंग से नीचे काम नहीं करना yeah, this is the kind of role I want to do, so I might as well wait. या मैं इंतजार कर लूंगा. So इसलिए कई दफा वो statistics थोड़े skewed होते हैं. But overall, if you are coming to the US, I would highly recommend networking पहले दिन से आने से पहले भी try to reach out to at least 50 people before you get here. और 50 लोगों की लिस्ट हो कि मैं यूएस में जाके इनसे मिलूंगा या इनसे मिलूंगी और मैं बात करूंगी सो दैट वंस यू गेट हियर यू आप इतनी बड़ी इकोनॉमी में आ रहे हो, इतनी नई इकोनॉमी में आ रहे हो एंड यू आर नॉट एक्सपोज टू इट. So you need to make sure that you talk to as many people that can impart that knowledge on you. साथ एक और सवाल ये कि what are some of the tips and tricks for exam day? एग्जाम डे पे कई बच्चे एक तो कॉन्फिडेंस की वजह से रजिस्टर देर से करते हैं. But for example, in my case, I wasn't able to sleep the night before, and मुझे लगता है उससे मेरा थोड़ा सा नुकसान हुआ था. So, what are some of the tips and tricks? I know that you recommend एक वो calculator का तुम बताते हो कि calculator वो होता है. So, उस तरह की कोई दो चार practical tips.
Before the exam, I would say that sleep on time, that's very important. Secondly, a lot of people practice on the last day. That's a suicide. Don't do that, because I'll tell you why. If you answer a hard question and get it wrong, you will be like your preparation is not up to the mark. And even if you get the easy question correct, you'll be like, hey, this had to happen. So there's no benefit of practicing on the very last day. Don't do that. At max, if you someone like you need to study, and you're very short on time, then you can revise the vocab. That's what I would say. That's the max we should do. Um, Other than that, yeah, the calculator thing, yes, that works, because a lot of people use the calculator through the mouse. That is the suicide as well. You need to use it through the keypad, the number pad. That's very important. You should also know that once you ask for a sheet where you write, once you ask for an extra sheet, they will take that present sheet from you, the invigilator. So you should know that that your rough work, I think you should only ask for an extra sheet once your section is over. Otherwise, your rough work will be on the other sheet that has gone, and it just gets very messy. I think also Anas joined in. He just scored 325, Anas, yesterday. So, and
Ji, Saad.
so, yeah, so he has been with me since a long time. He's really worked hard. So I think he can also give you really good tips. He genuinely worked really hard. And the right,
Thank
the
you.
fun thing about him is that he worked on he worked on the mental part of it. So
Yeah.
he has a very different.
Nice. What do you mean mental part of it? उसे क्या
Yeah,
मतलब?
so it's a whole like podcast, because let's try to explain what happened.
Hanji, sure. So, a little bit of context on who I am and what I did. So, I graduated from LUMS back in 2022 with an econ major, and ever since then, I've been a corporate slave for the most part. बस 3 साल से बस काम करता रहा हूँ rigorously. In the middle, but then when Saad started his ये जो kickstart में जो classes होती हैं, I joined his class because I wanted to get an insight into how GRE works, what are the ins and outs of it, how to do it the 3-4-1 way. So I joined his class, and उसके बाद से जो है I mostly, so in a nutshell मेरे 3 attempts थे. मेरा सबसे पहला attempt में आया था 313, फिर दूसरा attempt में मेरा आया था 312, and then the third and the most recent attempt I scored a 325, alhamdulillah, and Allah का बहुत आसान है कि ये score मेरा आया था.
And I told him not to give up, because you can see the potential in every student, right? So
Yeah.
I told him it was just the mental part.
It was just the mental part. In a nutshell, I would say mental part का ये है कि GRE, I believe Saad has mentioned this already, कि it's all about nerves. आपकी nerves की game है ये. And basically GRE is in a way implicitly telling you you need to calm the frick down because the thing is, if you don't calm down and you let your anxiety and your stress get the better of you, unfortunately फिर होता ये है कि आप crumble कर जाते हो mentally, and जो आपके आसान सवाल होते हैं जिसमें आप स्कोर भी कर पाते हो अच्छा सा, you don't end up doing those well even. And at the same time mental game में एक दूसरी side भी ये है कि familiarity index भी एक होता है. So like for instance if let's suppose आपको एक Pythagoras theorem का एक सवाल आया है, and usually आप ये because ever since you you know started learning the concept आपको ज़्यादातर कहा गया कि hypotenuse calculate करके जो है ना हमें आंसर निकाल दो, क्वेश्चन खत्म है आपका. ETS tricks you उसमें कि for instance अब मेरा जो कल वैसे I don't be explaining it but खैर what ETS does is it tricks you question के अंदर ही कि hypotenuse की बजाय बोलेगा मुझे base निकाल के दो या perpendicular निकाल के दो या hypotenuse plus base, hypotenuse plus perpendicular and so on and so forth. So the thing is ETS tricks you in multiple ways and you just have to have an eye for it. And in order to have an eye for it, you need to calm down because and I can't stress this more than enough because अगर आप stressed होके बुरे हाल में दे रहे होगे अपना GRE, unfortunately you won't get your desired score. And at the same time
Nice.
ये जो आपके जो nerves की भी game है ना, this even transpires in your practice tests even कि जब आप ETS की power preps वगैरह दे रहे होते हो उसमें भी ये है कि for instance let's suppose because शुरू में मेरे भी जो power prep में scores आ रहे होते थे वो 305, 308, 309 आ रहे होते थे and I was very demoralized if I'm being real. But the thing was कि
unless you can also tell that the power preps are easier, right?
The power preps were easier, yes.
That's the problem with this exam.
That's the problem now. पहले तो साथ ये होता था कि जब मेरा सबसे पहला attempt था उसमें फिर भी the power preps were sort of reflective of the actual exam.
I agree. The quant level has risen.
Not I would say कि it's changed drastically and ETS at this point doesn't care about you. It's because the thing is when I revisited some of those power preps, for instance, उसमें भी ये था कि the questions were very easy. लेकिन जो actual exam था, that was starkly different. And I'm like, why are you swerving us into this? Because it makes no sense. Because if you're the organizer of the exam, you should at least, and even if आपके resources भी आपने जो publicly provide किए हैं वो limited है, at least make them reflective of it, right? कि अगर आपके पास आपने big book दिया हुआ है, आपने ETS Power Prep Plus भी दिया हुआ है, आपने even जो mentor वाला जो दिया हुआ है, हालांकि I never bought it and I wasn't convinced by it honestly because I was like मैं खुद ही ये सब कर लूंगा. I don't want to spend way too much money on ETS resources वैसे ही. But thing is that Hanji, you were about to say something?
Anas, I just say thank you for sharing your story. I hope, Saad, have you put it up on your stories on your Instagram?
What?
Have you put Anas' story on your Instagram?
He just took the exam yesterday, so I let him official score and diagnostic come. But I will tag him. Yeah, I will.
Congrats, Anas. So what's your plan now? What kind of masters or MBA are you looking at?
So my intended major is Masters in Business Analytics, and in case if and as a backup plan, so I've decided to opt for Canada and Australia, and Canada में mainly आपकी University of Toronto आता है, University of Calgary आता है, and Alberta even because उनके GRE के scores की काफी एक वो है high weightage.
Because scores.
So I didn't get you. आपकी आवाज बीच में कटी थी.
Because of the GRE scores की weightage ज़्यादा है इसलिए.
Yeah, exactly. And plus वो ज़्यादातर Quant को ही देख रहे होते हैं. Australia में भी ये है कि so University of Melbourne and Sydney were some of the more standout universities in my opinion. उसमें भी ये था कि they also look at GRE. So they're like only a select few universities उसमें Australia में. But Canada का मेरा ज़्यादा उसमें.
I'm sorry I'm cutting you off in the middle.
Yeah.
Have a huge disagreement with you. Because if I were you, I would think about कि मैंने जिंदगी में करना क्या है, मेरे goals क्या हैं, what kind of career do I want to get into. For example, 2-3 साल से you said you've been working in corporate. इसके बाद मुझे finance करनी है, consulting करनी है, मुझे tech में जाना है, whatever मेरा वो क्या है. And then I would see कि कौन से मुल्क में मुझे जाके मेरे career outcomes maximize हो सकते हैं.
Yeah.
मेरा GRE स्कोर अच्छा है तो अब मैं GRE का फायदा किधर उठा सकता हूँ. I think I'm not saying it's wrong. I just disagree with it. How you're thinking about it. There's two sides of how to think about things. I think you should think about कि मैंने अपने career outcomes किधर maximize कर सकता हूँ rather than कि मेरा दाखला किधर हो सकता है.
Say, say.
I think
Yeah,
you're
that makes sense.
I
That
think
does
you're
make
a
sense.
good enough score that you
Hmm.
should do something better than a business analytics degree. I did a business analytics degree. It is मुझे जिस तरह हम उर्दू में बोलते हैं आधा तीतर आधा बटेर. So
Acha, acha.
you're not a very technical guy out of the degree. You're not और आपका लंबा चौड़ा network भी नहीं बनता. But that's like a different conversation. But I'd
Okay.
recommend talk to a few people. But congrats on. I mean that's a great score. You can get into any
Thank
of
you.
the top programs. So
Hmm.
I'd recommend के साथ को thank you बोल के
Hmm.
try to ask him to connect you with a few of his students जो कि अच्छी जगहों से like who are at top
Yeah,
universities
yeah. Hmm.
and then take it from there inshallah.
Hmm. नहीं, that really helps the Barak, honestly, because मेरा भी यही था कि I I do feel like there were some points where some parts of my future plan were not materialized as much as I thought it would be. So yeah, I'm still looking into it even further. Up to here, since GRE as a whole weight has been lifted off my shoulders, I can now think about it much more, because
Nice.
GRE itself is very taxing physically and mentally. तो उसमें आज ज्यादा ना आपका टाइम लग ही जाता है, and given के especially I was working around 9 hours in every single
Yeah,
weekday,
so,
तो वो
yeah,
उसके चक्कर में टाइम आपके आपके पास barely होता है, तो वो आप या तो उसे पढ़ाई में
talk,
लगा। हाँ
talk
जी,
technical, yeah. I'll get back to Saad for a few questions, but thanks for chiming in. Thank you.
सही, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes.
So, Saad, so a final round of questions. Anything that you think हमने जो miss किया that we should have talked about?
No, I don't think so. I think in questions, I can see if there's any
अच्छा, so
question.
there's just one question. What's a good score for top tier MS in computer science? Whatever your score is, that is a good score, but try to aim for 320 plus. Right? Try to aim for 320 plus. But आपका जो भी score आया, you have to convince yourself you're good enough. ठीक है? और
Yeah.
वो जितने मर्जी score पे हो, you just have to have that confidence. और फिर apply करना होता है क्योंकि
I just
जितने
answered it in like 10 seconds. For MSCS, your quant needs to be really heavy. It should be
yeah.
167 around. Your variable doesn't matter. Next question. Best resources of vocab question practice. Vocab question, by vocab question, she means sentence equivalence and text completion. And for this, I would say the best resource is the ETS official guides, the purple ones.
Nice. अच्छा इसके बाद Saad, while you're looking at the questions, Saad has compiled a list of I think 15 to 20 frequently asked questions. That I'll send it out to everybody who signed up on the email as well. Or I'll try to get the recording
Yeah,
of the.
and also I sorry to cut you. A lot of people complain that I don't reply on my Instagram. I'll just be very honest with you that I do get a lot of messages. Firstly, secondly, if I've committed to someone, so I think ethically also I am bound to reply to them first. You know what people do is that they don't follow the account and then they message me. It goes in my spam. So I don't look at my hidden folder. So at least you should have the courtesy to at least follow and then message so that then you can complain. Yeah, then it makes sense.
Nice. Or इसके अलावा I think another thing that people your students should do is कि आप पहले online before reaching out I think at
Yeah,
least
do
do
some research.
online, yeah. That's very good. Somebody was asking about Scholar Den as well. What do you?
Yeah, no, I don't recommend that. I've replied to that. So, someone asked about target test prep. It's great for GMAT if you want to do it. It's pretty good for
Uh,
GMAT.
I think I got a couple of questions about your one-on-one question sessions. So how do you go about? How do you decide कि कितने करने हैं, किसके साथ करने हैं? Because I
I
got a
don't
problem.
listen, even if you ask, unless I think and tech, unless and I also didn't have a lot of sessions. I think that's what happens with me. How do I decide? I decide by seeing the form if they filled it in a lot of detail firstly. So that, and it's a quite annoying form. Matlab, it has like 10 to 12 questions, and that's like a filter for me. So if someone goes through that and like answers in detail, and secondly someone who has a realistic aim, like someone who has a 280 or 290 and wants a 330, I will never take them, because it's a loss for both, right? And I know that's not possible. It takes more time for that. So firstly, you have to fill the form in detail, and secondly, I am very smart about it. I've been doing this since the past 5 years now, 4.5 years. I can easily get to know if someone is actually genuinely interested, because you know what people do is they just post fake screenshots of their power preps so that I just take them. But I do have access to all these scores, so there's no point of doing that.
Nice.
If you fill the form in detail and give a background as to why you're taking the GRE, that would, I think, motivate me as well. I'm not saying I'm a huge deal or anything, but like if you get a lot of forms, that is how I filter out.
Okay, nice. अच्छा इसमें एक चीज है that we did not cover या or maybe that's just my personal experience was that कि जब मैं जीआरई दे रहा था तो what I really did was कि जो मैं quant के और verbal के जो सारे sections हैं just to familiarize myself with that कि यार exam में actually है क्या क्या. I think Big Book थी या I think it was £5 या ETS की basic कोई guide थी. I'm not exactly sure अब. लेकिन मैंने बस I just skimmed through all the sections और एक हफ्ता लगा के I sat for my first mock exam and that kind of helped me reflect के मुझे किधर काम करना है किधर नहीं करना और उससे confidence भी आपके एक certain level पे बन जाता है. So that's how I got started. Saad, do you have
And
any tips for three
someone
blankets?
is saying, please share the link of the form. And firstly, I'm not here to advertise about my classes. This is a question that
Yeah.
always comes to me, and the purpose was genuinely to help. You can go to my Instagram page and see. I can send you the link here, but I genuinely want you to Google and like go through. Everything cannot be given to you in a plate, so I will not send them.
Or Saad, any tips for three blankers? That's what Sue's asking.
Who asked this? This is a good question. Any So three blankers, I would say I always practice at the end. Because look, there are a couple of things that go against three blankers. Firstly, it takes a lot of time to read them because the story is at least of 2 to 3 lines. Secondly, if you don't get all three correct, so if you don't get all three correct, you will not get marked. So if you get 2 out of 3, you will still end up with a 0. And I usually skip it in the beginning and then do it at the end because it has a low ROI. That's how I would do it. And triple blank, yes, another tip for that. Try to solve the last blank first. It's relatively easier, and then reverse engineer. Then I can't say to prioritize the first blank or the second blank, but the third blank is relatively easier, and then do the first or second, whatever makes more sense to you in that particular question.
Nice. तो
Chat
लोग पूछ रहे
GPT to generate real GRE questions, no, it will never be able to generate.
Yeah, and then when somebody's asking कि मेरा GRE score is 305, मेरा 2.9 CGPA है. Ali Mehdi is asking 1 year work experience. Is it good enough for Purdue's supply chain masters? Dude, like
This is
if you
a
have
good story. My brother actually did supply chain from Purdue, and he had a 313 GRE and a 2.68 CGPA.
so I think
So
it's good enough. At least you should always apply. जो भी है
yeah,
apply
yeah,
करो bro.
definitely.
Yeah. In your Facebook stories, you shared some GRE concepts tested today. Please share best possible way to
Yeah,
solve.
a lot of people really like that. I am planning. So Bharat, I think I should ask you as well because you also run an Instagram page. All my audience is on Instagram, all of it, like 100K.
Okay.
And on YouTube, I have only like 7,000 subscribers. Now I am planning to make a series basically of how I approach questions, and those will definitely help everyone. That's why people are asking it. I just don't know where to post it. If I post it on my YouTube, there's not much engagement. If I post it on my Instagram, then all my success stories go very I think they'll go down, and then the problem will be that people won't be able to access them. Like they'll have to scroll a lot. So I'm also in a dilemma right now, and after that, because I've made those videos, but I don't know where to publish
Okay. और एक और सवाल था मगूश पेड या मगूश पेड और ओनली वीडियोस
them. Magoosh paid or only videos? So Magoosh paid. The videos are the same. If you get a hang of those videos from somewhere, they're the same. So not necessarily. If you do have money, then yes, you can invest because you get the dashboard. You get some extra questions as well. But Magoosh, don't use Magoosh for verbal. That's a big suicide. So you're paying the entire amount, but like 50% of it is rubbish.
नाइस और let me just
Yeah, Mustafa says put it in highlights. I will. No, a lot of people don't see the highlights. So no, I will. I don't know. I will come.
You just
I will do something.
post it on, I think, broadcast channel, whatever you have to. Yeah, people can.
So the videos.
Yeah, yeah, whatever. I mean, जो भी resources and basics. I think you already have a link, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do have a link.
Yeah, and I've been so many. I think in my email, blast email for everybody who registered on Luma, I sent you guys a link जिसमें सारे link tree भेजा था मैंने साथ में जिसमें सारे links attached हैं, so you can
So,
access them
yeah,
there. So, any final words? I think we are about to hit our mark. So, any final thoughts, parting thoughts?
I think everyone. So just I wanted Anis to come here because people don't understand that this exam is more about nerves. A lot of people work hard. Just like a lot of people have said, they feel everyone has a very random Google Drive and everyone is practicing through a lot of resources. The practice is not that big of a problem. The problem is to control your nerves when very difficult questions come to you in the exam, because that is your D-Day and that is what matters. So, Anis, if you could share a couple of tips as to how you calmed yourself, because he always had the potential to score and he's been in touch with me since a long time. I knew that it was just the nerves. So, Anis, if you could also tell.
Sure, sure. So
45 seconds on us.
Yeah.
sure, sure. So like, there are three things that I did. Number one was that every time I had sort of like negative thoughts about myself, that मैंने तैयारी नहीं सही की हुई, या शायद ये score सही ना आए, I used to journal it in a separate page just so that I can remove those thoughts from my brain and focus on the positive ones. And positive self affirmation is so important, because if you don't affirm yourself कि यार मैं ये कर सकता हूँ, and I've gotten the score before in practice tests, the GRE will unfortunately be very challenging for you to begin with. The third thing is that you need sleep and proper nutrition, or in order to ensure that you can think straight. Because the thing is that if you get into bad habits, so to speak, उसकी वजह से your performance gets compromised, and ultimately आपका जो आखिरी end result है वो भी compromise होता है. So yeah, these were like the three things that I did mainly. I
And unless
focused.
you also, I think, saw some of the success stories, those motivate. So, people,
Yeah, that
I
helps
think
too.
you saw
That helps
Rameez.
too. That was Ramin's testimonial, where she said that, and the most standout thing from her testimonial was that she didn't change anything about the curriculum that she was studying. She only calmed her nerves down. And my result itself is a testament to that. Ke you have to stay calm, even if questions aapko difficult aate hain ya familiar questions aate hain. You have to stay calm, because the GRE has many ways of throwing you off your game. So you have to stay calm, cool, and collected. And उसी की वजह से ही आपका end result आता है आखिर में सही.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that with us. And
That's me.
my final thought would be that GRE is an exam. It's a tool for you to get where you want to in life, or
Absolutely.
the next step in your career. But I mean, don't overkill yourself. If you don't get a great,
Yeah.
if you don't get what you think is a great score, if you have time, prepare for it. Know why you're giving your GRE exam, और फिर उस why को pursue करना है कि जो end goal है उसको pursue करना है, rather than एग्जाम सही नहीं हो रहा, दो दफा नहीं हुआ, तीस दफा नहीं हुआ, और एग्जाम सही ना होने की वजह से you're not applying, taking the next step. So, just do that. I know a few students who got into great schools with 100% funding. Unka 305, 306, 307. So, there are multiple ways to do things and get to where you want to. GRE is a tool that accelerates या जो उसको अच्छी जगह पे आपको लेके जाएगा. But अगर नहीं हो रहा, अच्छा स्कोर नहीं आ रहा, तो don't overkill yourself या don't be super hard on yourself. Still apply to schools.
There is the Desi mindset that they want to apply to Harvard and get into Harvard. So that is why they obsess over this exam as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, genuinely.
और हारूद के भी कुछ प्रोग्राम्स उन्होंने जीआरई अभी वेव किया हुआ है.
A lot of people, but वही बात है दोबारा कि जहाँ वेव किया हुआ है वहाँ भी if you compare someone who has the GRE and someone not, they will
You get
obviously
the
prefer.
preference. You get
Yeah,
you get the
yeah,
preference. You get a preference.
exactly, 100%. And one thing I forgot to mention is that in your journey, everyone who scores a 320 plus or improves, they always make an error log. So this is very important. If you don't make an error log, in the sense that if what are your mistakes, like is if your con mistake, was it a silly mistake or a conceptual mistake? If it was a silly mistake, then like what was it? Was it a copying down error? Was it a mental math error? You need to know that. And if it was a conceptual mistake, then go back to the videos, or even you can chat GPT the concept and understand that. And you have to revise your error log every Sunday. That will actually tell you. Actually, you know what happens is that once you start revising your error log, subconsciously you get to know what mistakes you're prone to committing, and you don't make those. So this will definitely help.
Nice, nice. Oh, yeah, I think that is pretty much it. I think we tried to cover most of the things. Saad, thank you for being very specific in most things. I will try to get मैंने इसको record तो किया. I'll try to send it out to everyone who signed up for the session. And thank you all for taking out the time on a Sunday evening. I think you're all doing something right कि आप अपने weekend पे time निकाल रहे हो. And seeing two random dudes talk about a random exam. So I think you you're exactly that means that you prioritize your career, and inshallah, we hope that you get a lot of success. Congrats, Anas, for scoring your exam, scoring great on your exam, and improving your score.
Thank you.
Inshallah, good things are in your future as well. So Saad, thank you again, and inshallah we'll.
No, a
Uh,
lot of people are asking me my contact and stuff like that. If you go to my Instagram, everything is given. My team's WhatsApp, the
Yeah, you can
phone.
reach out to Saad on his Instagram, on his YouTube. YouTube पे I think काफी hidden resources पड़ी हुई हैं. So try
हाँ,
to look for them as well, and I
ये मैं
will try.
सही लिस्ट है मेरा. They're hidden.
And,
मतलब ऐसे नहीं do.
if you're doing well in your exams, try to help your buddies, your colleagues,
Try to
and
pass it. Try
yeah,
to pass it. That was the entire motive behind this podcast as well. Like it wasn't कि मैं लोगों को sign up कर लूँ, मतलब या तो बारक का भी ये नहीं था. So we were doing it pro bono. We genuinely wanted to help जो आए, and आपको भी जितनी समझ आती है आप आगे pass on करो. And I would say that this exam is possible for everyone. You need to work hard, yes. A, B, you need to work smart. You will get that. You will only know how to work smart if you do a lot of research. And one thing that I would tell you is that if you don't do time practice and if you don't make an error log, you will never be able to improve in this exam.
okay. So make a time log, make an error log.
Yep.
All right, that's it. And thank you all, and we hope to see you soon, inshallah. Take care. Allah Hafiz. Thank you, Saad.
No worries.
Allah Hafiz.
Love.